There are actually two items on the agenda. The first item is SAMM User Day in Barcelona, which is a great opportunity for everyone to meet your peers, people who are using SAMM, who are thinking about using SAMM, who have used SAMM, sharing their tips and tricks, things that they like, that they think should be improved, and just discuss anything there is around OWASP SAMM. And then the second part of the agenda for today is talking about the Cyber Resilience Act, which is a regulation in the European Union affecting any products with digital element that will be placed in Europe or sold in Europe, marketed in Europe. And I'm super happy that Maxim is on this call because he's the expert on CRA. I'm, let's say, just an amateur who has jumped on that train recently. But I'll come to that when we get there. So, well, the first thing is Barcelona, May 28th. Consider joining. The number of seats is pretty limited. I think it's 38 or maybe 40. And I know that last time on SAMM User Day, we had more than 50 participants because we had a lot more seats. So don't hesitate too long. Register, and all the information you will find on this link here. We already have a finalized agenda, or let's say the only thing that is not final here is probably the ordering of the talks, because I know that Marissa, who will be talking about security champions, it's the 5th talk. She's also doing a training on the same day, so she asked if she can join whenever there is time, so we might move her around. But then the talks that we have are on different topics: SAMM, using SAMM and introducing SAMM in an organization, tips and tricks, lessons learned. There are a couple of talks on that. We have several talks on specific topics in SAMM, like security champions, like governance. And then we also have a talk on CRA, which will go in depth. Today, we're probably not going to cover that much. Also, what we're going to cover about CRA today is going to be still sort of work in progress, because it's like draft and initial sharings, of the initial findings. After that, there will be a SAMM sponsored dinner, and we're actually looking for sponsors. During the previous several SAMM User Days, Torion and Codific were sponsors of that event, to make sure that, I mean, SAMM is an open source community, and because I'm from Codific and Maxim and Seba are from Torion, we want to make this as open as possible. So we would like to give priority for anyone else out there who wants to sponsor the dinner. If nobody volunteers, then Codific and Torion are the backup options. And that is pretty much I wanted to tell. So consider subscribing, consider joining us, and there is a chance we might record the talks this time. I think that we have ordered a recording equipment normally. So if you cannot make it, there is a big chance. I'm not giving 100% promises yet, because I'm not super sure. But there is a big chance that we will record it and you can still watch the sessions. But note that you're still going to miss a lot of interesting discussions. There is also a roundtable where everyone will be involved. So I would say attending is the better option. The next part of the presentation focuses on Cyber Resilience Act, and in a couple of words,
if you want. Yeah.
Yes, maybe Maxim should just take over, and then I'll jump in whenever I want to add something. But yeah, Maxim is our expert. Maxim, you have the word and the floor.
Good. And the fun thing is, I'm actually going to go back to your previous slide first without talking about the CRA, because we had a question on the group chat in Slack. Basically, the SAMM User Day last year was $50, and this year it's $250. And this is basically due to the nature of the event. So we need at least $200 to break even per attendee. If we don't have recording equipment, and $250 to break even with recording equipment, it's pretty insane, but we don't have a lot of agency here to reduce the attendance the cost for attendance. So we'll address this also in an answer to the person who asked the question, but I wanted to weigh in because I was looking at like, hey, where does this price hike come from? And apparently it's due to the nature of the event.
Yeah, good point. No, but none of us is making money, by the way. So we are all volunteers.
Yeah.
All of our time is non-paid. So it's not like we are trying to make money on you. On you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Thanks for clarifying that.
with that
Next
going
slide.
into the Cyber
Awesome.
Resilience Act. So for those not yet in the know, Europe is introducing a new regulation, especially as it is introducing a suite of regulations, but specifically the Cyber Resilience Act is a regulation that it's called a horizontal regulation. It's affecting basically every product that's going to be placed on a European market that has what they call a digital element. If you look around on your desk, you will probably have a bunch of appliances probably on your desk or near your desk that are bearing the CE mark. So the Conformité Européenne, as it's called, and that's a safety regulation. It's been in place from like in 1985, I believe, that they made it. And so you can bring a product on a European market if it adheres to certain safety and potentially other specific requirements, adhering to some certain standards. And if you do so, then awesome. You can sell your product in the whole unified European market. So you only go to this process once, and then you get access to the full market. We in Europe, we get the benefit of having products that meet a minimum bar of safety. And what they did is they looked at this regulation and said like, well, we need cybersecurity too. And with the Cyber Resilience Act, they're introducing cybersecurity requirements as part of this safety regulation. And so as of 2027, products placed on the European market, specifically what they call products with digital elements, they need to adhere to a basic set of security requirements. Organizations, manufacturers, distributors, and importers that place products on the market, they need to adhere to certain vulnerability handling requirements. You even need to report if you become aware of incidents that might affect the security of your product, or you believe that your products are being actively exploited. So it goes quite far at this point in time. And the reason why it's important for SAMM is because the basic security requirements that they put there is like, well, you need to do security based on risk, and you need to make products that are secure by design and secure by default. You need to do certain security steps. And the more you read, the more you see, like, let's say, the more you read up on it, the more you will realize that these requirements cannot be the process of a one-shot operation. You cannot pour security sauce or the compliance sauce on top of a finished product. You need a secure development lifecycle in order to basically be successful in getting your product certified, getting your product on the market, and like sleeping well at night, knowing that you won't get fined for a non-conformant product. And personally, so Adam calls me the expert. Maybe in the SAMM team, I'm the expert. I'm following up with the legislation for a while now, because I believe that for SAMM and for product security in general, this is the biggest driver that we've seen in a long time. And I believe it's going to spark the adoption of OWASP SAMM in the near future too, as companies are going to realize like, okay, we need a secure development lifecycle. How do we do this? And so from the SAMM core team, we've been involved in through Eclipse, for example, Eclipse Foundation, and through OpenSSF, or sometimes directly to the European Commission. So we've been trying to bridge also the people from OWASP with the people that make the laws, people that make the standards, people that are working in this ecosystem around the standards. And we're trying to basically make sure that OWASP knowledge ends up in the hands of standardization bodies and legislators. At the same time, because we feel with the SAMM core team that SAMM is an ideal vehicle to implement a secure development life cycle that can get you a compliant product to the market, we've been working on mapping SAMM to the Cyber Resilience Act. And I think your next slide goes a bit here. So yeah, the work in progress that we have today is basically going two ways. On one hand, we are mapping the explicit Cyber Resilience Act requirements to streams in OWASP SAMM. on the other hand, since this is really a product security legislation where your end customer, you basically share the responsibility for security or for securely operating the product, you're sharing it with your end customer. And they need certain information to do so. They need certain documentation. They need to be able to evaluate if your product that you're putting to the market is secure enough for their needs. And so it requires certain communication, certain documents to be available, and SAMM is not always that specific. So while on one hand, we're mapping the base requirements to SAMM streams, on the other hand, we're also putting in place requirements enhancements on the quality criteria level that allow you to in more detail apply SAMM for CRA compliance. Basically, if to give you an example, if you are doing a threat model, the output should be for internal use, but there should be artifacts that are able to be consumed externally, because your threat model describing your doomsday scenarios, your normal deployment model, the security considerations. This is important technical documentation that you will need to provide in order to prove compliance to the legislation. Next slide, please. So yeah, at the moment, it is myself, Aram, Dash, and Daniel, and Seba too, who is all,
yep.
Yeah, who all looked at the document. We have some practices that we're sure that are not mentioned. Secure build is in here, but secure build is 100% mentioned because of SBOM.
It's still debatable. You don't really
SBOMs
need
like,
secure build to generate SBOM. But anyway, that's a different discussion. So it's work in progress. And so we're definitely sure about the first two ones. The third one is still up for a debate. It does seem weird that you wouldn't have secure build though. So
yeah. But so yeah, there's some practices that we feel, okay, these are not out. These are potentially out, but we feel they might be still helpful. We're going to indicate them as such. If you go to the next slide, the most important realization I think that we made, not that yet. So yeah, it is indeed high maturity required in certain very specific practices. And then the next slide. That's about scores. Yeah, the most important realization that we made is as we did the mapping, that I'm mapping like a target score. So I did the mapping as in, if you have this score, you can like sleep sound. You know, you have nothing more to do. You will deliver CRA compliant products. Aram has aimed for, okay, what is here the minimum bar that we need? I believe that is somewhere in between. And the goal is, as sort of outcome of this mapping work, is that we define a almost guaranteed compliance target score. Like, you are mature enough that all's going well and you can focus on like other stuff. But also minimum bar. What are the absolute foundational practices that you need to have in place? Going back to this previous slide, these are the so having an application risk profile, doing threat modeling, doing proper supplier security, and keeping track of your dependencies, and of course many practices in operations where you now not only have a link. Now you're not only managing operations yourself, but now in operations you have a direct link to your end customer. So that work is ongoing. I don't know whether I need to talk any more about this. We're soon looking for feedback. I can share a link to the quality criteria Excel, but not yet to the requirements to SAMM mapping, as this is very much work in progress. Yeah, Adam, what am I forgetting?
I would say that even the low minimum, which I have, is 1.4. It's still,
which is quite high.
Is very high given our experience with SAMM assessments. So I would say I love the regulation because it's finally gonna pull up everyone to some minimum level of security and make security initially everyone's worry, and hopefully eventually everyone's job. Shall I go to the next slide?
Yeah, for me it's good. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, indeed, those are the gaps basically that we still have identified. There will be a compliance aspect that will probably never be covered by SAMM. As mentioned, the information structures to the user. This is partially compliance, partially like literally user documentation. There is standards like IEC 6244341 that by nature have a little bit more depth in them on how to produce documentation for the user and on how to provide the necessary artifacts to end users that allow them to securely operate a product. So this is new for SAM, but exists already in other regulations. In other standards. And on these standards, right now, there will need to be 41 standards related to CRA. You will need to use one or more of these standards, apply them to your products in order to basically get your product compliant or provide a presumption of conformity, as they say. If you do not use these standards, then you need to go to an external certification. Probably people will always use these standards. But more importantly, if you these standards, they're in the making at the moment. If you're going to wait for these standards to arrive, they will arrive like 2 months before the actual legislation, like everything takes effect, then you will be too late. What we see is most companies, if you go and build an SDLC, it's a 2 year plus program to like slowly change a working organization, working basically on a running engine to make it just a little bit more secure, a little bit more mature. And the regulation takes effect December 2027, which is kind of like it's less than a week basically. And 2026, when the vulnerability handling requirements, vulnerability reporting requirements take effect, that's basically tomorrow. So what you have now to rely on is best practices. And again, we think with SAM, the sooner we can get this mapping out and communicate about this mapping, then the more people can already rely on best practices so that when the standards come out, there's only a small delta to apply to your product development process. And I think
I just want to add
CRA.
here.
Yeah.
I just want to add here that so to give a number to the whole thing. So how much of CRA will you cover? Let's say if you get to a certain SAM target posture, which we will share what is our opinion. If I have to put a number on it in percentage, I would say, and this comes, by the way, this part is done by Daniel. Daniel is looking into that, another core team member. I would say right now we're around 70%. Don't take this the literal way, but I would say that, and this would be my ambition, if you use SAM like you should, by the way, not just interpreting the quality criteria in a shallow way, if you go all depth and you go the way the best practices suggest, hopefully it will be 80%. So if you use SAM, and I hope we will get there, use SAM, this is your target, and you cover 80% of CRA. That would be my dream, I would say. Okay.
Not only yours, I wanted to add.
All right, awesome. By the way, Dag, is there something you want to add that we forgot that you see because you've been also working on the mapping?
No, thank you. You guys did a good job representing it.
Okay, thanks. Now, just the final part, that was everything. I just want to remind everyone, we have several communication channels. Slack, if you're not on Slack, there is a Slack for OWASP. And once you join that Slack, it's completely free. You should join a Project SAM channel where you can ask any questions. And there is a huge community there. You can ask any sort of SAM-related questions, administrative questions. So it's a way to get in touch with the whole team and with others. Meetup, where we will always publish the SAM community calls like today. Then there is a mailing list. Again, we highly recommend you subscribing to that mailing list. Through this channel, we are sharing a lot of SAM-related news. I would say all of the SAM-related news are shared also on the mailing list. And there is a YouTube channel where we are going to share this recording, for instance, but also any other recordings which are related to the project.